We're looking at your guards, forwards, and centers, trying to think of who's going to stay and who is going to go. This is your Fantasy Hoops. Lauren Shehadi, Jamey Eisenberg. Glad to be with you, Jamey. When you're talking about Brandon Roy, along with a couple guards that you're going to see on this next list, 36.5 points per game. That's fantasy relevance right there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you talk about a breakthrough performance. You know, you look at some of the guys on this list, obviously Chris Paul ahead of Kobe Bryant. That's a little bit of a shock, but I think you look at the numbers and you'll see that Paul is playing fantastic. But Brandon Roy, probably the biggest surprise to be a top 5 fantasy guard. You know, when you're looking at the Portland Trailblazers, everybody thought it was going to be Greg Oden making his debut finally. He would carry that team. They forgot that Brandon Roy is the catalyst of the Portland Trailblazers and the reason why they're going to be in the playoffs this year. I think you look at Brandon Roy, his fantasy numbers are through the roof. Had a 50-point game against Phoenix recently, just playing phenomenal. The scoring is there. He's really taken the next step in his career. And if you have him on your fantasy team, obviously you're not going to bench him, but you finally got a guy that if you drafted maybe second or third round, he's living up to first-round status because he's that good of a player.
Speaking of first-round status, Tim Duncan, is a double-double too much to ask, really? He is playing incredibly in all facets of his game, Jamey.
Yeah, you know, everybody thought that Tim Duncan probably going to take the step in the other direction, that he was going to sort of fade back after sort of slowing down a little bit. But with injuries to Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili to start the season, he's put the San Antonio Spurs on his back. You know, you talk about, obviously, LeBron James and Amari Stoudemire. Those are two of the best forward options. Al Jefferson as well. But Tim Duncan still getting it done. You know, still putting some of those young guys in their place and showing them that he could still be, as you mentioned, a double-double threat. You know, so as long as that continues, he's going to go through that lull at some point in the season because they gear up for the playoffs. He's a proven veteran. He knows that he needs to be well-rested and going strong toward the end of the season. So at some point, the numbers are going to slow down, especially now that Parker, Ginobili, they're back playing at the level that we expected them to play at. So when you look at Tim Duncan now, get the production out of him while you can, because at some point, there's going to be a little bit of a slowdown.
What about the production when you're talking about Zach Randolph? He can play the center and a forward in terms of fantasy terms.
You know, Lauren, it's interesting when you talk about Zach Randolph, the fact that he's eligible at both spots. You know, similar situation with Amari Stoudemire, Al Jefferson. But you look at the guys on this list, the fact that Randolph is still a top 5 center is kind of intriguing because we know the trade from the Knicks to the Clippers. We expected him to take a little bit of a hit because of Chris Kaman, Marcus Camby. But the fact that Kaman has been hurt for a while now has helped Randolph continue to put up tremendous numbers. And I think that will continue as long as Kaman's out. Now, that's obviously going to change a little bit when Kaman comes back because you're looking at 3 guys there that are going to hurt each other at some point. Camby, Kaman, Randolph. Obviously, right now, Camby's also playing really well, becoming a much more dominant center.
It's not a bad problem to have,
Not
really.
a bad problem to have for the Clippers, but if you're talking from a fantasy perspective, it could be trouble because you don't know which guys are going to continue to produce at a high level. Randolph, obviously, someone you're never going to bench, but still it's something that's going to have to shake itself out, develop once Kaman comes back and all 3 guys are healthy and playing together.
All right, Jamey, well, it's all about injuries. If you're in Indiana, you're worried about the flu, but if you're a Carmelo Anthony owner, you're worried about bigger things.
Yeah, Carmelo Anthony is obviously the key injury here when we're looking at the forwards. You know, I think you look at the guys on this list, though, going through it. The Indiana guys, I expect the 2 guards / forwards, depending on where you want to play Danny Granger. Granger and Marquise Daniels, those guys are going to be fine. They're going to eventually come back from the flu. Troy Murphy's the one you're going to have to worry about when you're looking at fantasy centers. But I think you're talking about Carmelo Anthony, obviously one of the best fantasy forwards, if not the best, you know, depending where you're ranking LeBron James. Obviously, he's not in our top 5, but still, Carmelo Anthony, a tremendous fantasy producer. I think you look at him with the elbow injury. He's going to miss 3 games now, so that's basically every game coming into this coming scoring period. So I think you're going to have to keep him reserved. Some guys that may step up, Kevin Martin, J.R. Smith, you know, Chauncey Billups still going to continue to produce good stats. Linus Kliza, some of the other Nuggets players are going to have to step up with Carmelo out, but this is someone you're going to have to keep reserved. Again, I think the Indiana guys will come back, but still, at what point, you know, we don't know because this flu bug has now lingered for 2 games.
Okay, because of the flu, because of these injuries, Jamey, who are you going to pick up? I know you like Matt Bonner of San Antonio.
Yeah, Matt Bonner is a great option. You know, you talk about someone who's worked well when you're talking about Tim Duncan and the way that he's played. Bonner has center eligibility now. He's a good shooter. Going to give you some 3-point stats if you're looking at it from a rotisserie league. So he's someone to look out. You know, you saw on the injured list Tyrese Thomas and Drew Gooden. That's going to open up some things for Andres Nocioni. You know, somebody who's out there in the majority of leagues you could pick up and he could start for you at forward this coming scoring period. And then Marco Bellinelli is an interesting player because at some point Monta Ellis is going to come back. That's some news that you have to continue to monitor. But as long as he's out, Bellinelli is continuing to pick up some production, someone you could stick in as a 4th fantasy guard or someone that could just fill out your bench for you. But Bellinelli's been very good. And as we know about Golden State, the one thing to keep in mind with them, Don Nelson continues to rotate guys in and out. Steven Jackson also missing some time. So as Kalina Azubuike also gets minutes, maybe gets a couple starts here and there, Bellinelli becomes the 6th man or even the starting guard for them, and that's somebody that can help you going forward.
Okay, we want to help you going forward. Before you enjoy your holidays, you got to set your lineup. Jamie, any last minute advice?
Yeah, the one thing to keep in mind also, not necessarily picking up guys, but Nenad Krstić signed an offer sheet with the Oklahoma City Thunder, so he could eventually be joining them after leaving New Jersey, going overseas. He could be back in the NBA soon. That's somebody to keep an eye on as well.
All right, that's all for us. The rest is up to you. For Jamey Eisenberg, I'm Lauren Shehadi. Good luck setting your lineup.